Good morning. It is the second segment on this morning on ITV, that is TMI, where we are going to discuss another issue after that one that was actually anchored by Dominic Ehemese. And this time around, we are going to look at the issue of subsidy removal suspension. Looking at that, the issue of subsidy has been a contentious matter with a lot of controversies right from 2012, where there were a lot of protests and a lot of issues between the then government and NLC and so many other stakeholders, which led to a lot of protests then. And successive government have been saying that they are going to remove that fuel subsidy, but with no avail, because all the government were unable to remove that subsidy due to so many issues. Although so many reports earlier suggested that the government has removed, later the government will now and say that they will remove. When are they going to remove this subsidy? Looking at the fact that even this year, the government gave a lot of commitment that the subsidy will be removed. But it was this January, the government has suspended that subsidy removal with a lot of that. So we are actually going to look at it in the eyes of Samaila Musa, who is Director, Program and Strategy Coalition of Northern Groups. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
Well, Samaila Musa,
yes.
subsidy removal. And we are yet to see the removal with a lot of issues from the economic angle, political angle, and so many other matters. What can you say about these contentious issues about subsidy removal?
Okay, well, I think there are so many class of thoughts with regards to this issue of subsidy removal. You know, so many economists also have over time been advocating for the removal of subsidy, you know, and some persons are also of the opinion that no, it should be retained. But by and large, the fact is that whatever policy the government is trying to bring, it should be pro people, you know, especially considering the timing. If the timing is ill, it could birth so many other issues that will even compound problems than the issue of the subsidy is actually created. So there's a need for the government to actually take its time to say, okay, so what are the indices, what are the indicators that say we really need to do this? Okay, if it's a necessity for us to do, what about the timing? You also need to consider that. But you see, for us on our part, we have advocated for this to say, look, the timing is very ill.
Why do you say so?
You see, these are one of the most turbulent times for Nigerians, especially the masses. You know, so much issues on ground that people are dealing with. When you go to agriculture, so many people have left the farms because of insecurity. And that has actually compounded problems in the area of food supply. So, and that's why is one of the issues why the prices of food is actually going high. You understand? And if everybody's keep lamenting what you made the mudu of rice last week is not what you're going to meet it this week. So these are some of the issues that is making people feel, look, the timing is ill. Is there a way you can actually suspend this when you are able to actually solve? Because you see, there are so many class of thoughts that says when hunger is taken out of poverty, then you are halfway done with poverty. So, but when there's so much hunger in the land, now removing the fuel subsidy is going to compound the problem in the sense that it has multiply effect, and this spiral, it goes spiral. I mean, across board in terms of the economy. Virtually every sector, prices are going to go higher.
But Samaila, looking at the huge amount of money to be spent on this subsidy for 1 year,
yes,
which can also be used to actually do a lot of things for the people as well. Don't you think that would have been better to just face the reality, face the facts, face the economic issues than leaving the subsidy and it keep going. Nigeria keep spending huge amount of money every year.
Okay, you see, just like I said earlier, we're saying the timing is wrong. The timing is wrong.
Why is it the timing is wrong?
You see, at this material time that we're talking, this country has never been in this kind of crisis.
Which crisis?
Food, in particular.
But the government says we have self-sufficient in terms of...
what is self-sufficient? When it's expensive, how do you justify how sufficient this is? But the same mudu of food you buy is times 3 of the price from what you buy last year.
The president said that it is the middleman.
Well, is it the duty of the poor masses to go and do the needful with the middlemen, or is on the desk of the presidents to do that? You see, when government is neglecting its functions and pushing
it's not really neglecting, but the president has said that they are working towards these issues.
Look, we're not even saying you are not working. Whatever you are doing, let it be done first before you begin to add another thing. So whether he's doing it or he's not doing it, that is left to them. Until we see what they're doing, the effect of what they're doing, that's when we know they're doing it. So we are waiting until that time is ripe, or when we start reaping the dividends of that, then you can remove the subsidy, such that, because you see, at this moment already, we're talking about the cost of food has gone times 3. When you add the cost of transportation, is not going to make, because of course when you remove subsidy, transportation is going to go higher. And these are the 2 major things that is actually sustaining the masses of Nigeria. Food, transportation. I need to go to work. So by the time it becomes times 3 of how much I get transport, by the time it becomes times 6 of how much I buy a mudu of gari, for instance. So what are we talking about? You are compounding the problems. So we're saying, solve the issue of this food problem first and foremost, such that by the time the effect of the subsidy removal is coming, that problem you've solved must have cushioned the effect of the subsidy removal in such a way that the effect is not as much as it ought to be now when you remove it at the moment. You understand? What? Because you see, the point the government is making, which are valid points, they say subsidy is gulping trillions of naira annually. Yes, that is a valid point. They also made mention that fuel is being smuggled to neighboring countries. That is also a valid point. But what we're saying is that it is not my duty to block the leakages at which fuel is being smuggled. There are ways you can come about these issues. You can actually go as far as blocking all these leakages using the security architecture that you already have. That is a function of government. The trillions of money that or so much expenses because of cost of running governance and all of that, you can actually block leakages in the cost of running governance in Nigeria, because you see, or even the avenues the civil servant and politicians are using to stealing money. There are so much money.
That is allegation. That is an allegation.
It's not an allegation. Do you know how many cases are with the EFCC?
Samaila, let me put this in. Earlier governments, when the mudu of gari are now talking about hunger, this and that, when the mudu of gari was lesser than this, yes, the government says we want to remove subsidy. When the prices of food were lesser than this, yes, the government says we are going to remove subsidy. Nigerians protest. People protest, just the way a lot of people are also protesting, yes, including you right now, saying, yes, that it is the time is ill.
Yes.
So when will it be okay to remove this? Looking at the fact that in the past, people still complain.
You see, I'll tell you something, and that's why going forward, I'm sure they just finished, one of the topics that they just finished now is about 2023, which way forward and all of that. You see, it is very important for Nigerians to be very careful when they are actually choosing the people that are going to be left to saddle or steer the wheel of this country out of this whole problem that we're having. When this government was in opposition, they also joined the people protesting against fuel subsidy. That is a statement of fact. I believe they knew, or they noticed, or they studied the terrain to know that it was not the right thing to do.
But that's normal for politicians. Whenever you are in a position, you always kick against so many policies and programs of government. That
Yes.
one is normal for politicians. But the fact remains that when you compare the issues in the past, the prices of everything in the past, and now, it is very less. And at that time, the fuel subsidy, I don't know whether you are among those that protested the removal of fuel subsidy
Subsidy at
then
that time.
or now. And now you are protesting. So when will it be right?
That's exactly the point I'm making right now. You see, most of these things fall on the desk of the governor. I mean, the government. I told you how this government actually participated in protests. You see, when you talk about politicians, we're trying to move away. Hold on.
Or the people, some of the people in the government.
Hold on. The president also was part of the people that protested. It wasn't something that he did from his bedroom. It was in the papers. They even protested to the presidency at the time. You understand? They were using Save Nigeria group to do most of those things. So really, I'm trying to make a point. You know, the point I'm making is that when you are in opposition or whatever it is, or where you want to vote people into power, let them come out with a blueprint of what they think they want to do. You need to ask them pertinent questions. What do you want to do with the issue of fuel subsidy? You understand? Because I believe that this present government have actually, you know, sat down and fashioned a way out of subsidy, that without subsidy, Nigeria can survive. Without removal of subsidy, fuel subsidy, Nigeria can survive. So what it is that has failed from that their, you know, roadmap, the blueprint they had at the time, what it is that has failed that makes them to come back to say they need to remove that fuel subsidy. But having said that, the point I'm making actually, which I laid the background at the first instance, is that whatever it is, government is continuous. If you say you want to remove fuel subsidy, you have what you met on ground. Your government has made it worse than what you met on ground. That is a statement of fact.
No.
You just mentioned. You just made mention to say that at that time when they were in opposition, things were not this high.
You understand? It is actually not only in Nigeria. Look at the UK. Look at Germany. Look at the result of surge of prices of so many things, including gas, including food. In fact, in Turkey, for example, they have about 100% increase in price of so many things. It is not only Nigeria. It is kind of a global something, most especially with the issue of COVID. So it is not per se a Nigerian government thing or the current government thing. But the fact remains that the issue of subsidy removal, you are saying that it is ill. It is ill time.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that before now, people still protest.
Yes.
And now still protesting.
Yes.
So should we continue spending this huge amount of money instead of the government to invest in
You see, each time I try to make a point, you keep interjecting me. The fact is that there are solutions to this.
What are the solutions?
The solutions are we have 4 comatose refineries that are there doing nothing, gulping billions of naira annually. They are not refining anything. Why should we be sitting down here when people who have spent more than 30 years in that same terrain are now in government and they don't seems to have a solution to it? And we're saying the only solution, the only way Nigeria can keep moving is to remove fuel subsidy. That is wrong. It is totally wrong. I will maintain that stand, and I commend the National Assembly for also, telling the presidency, I mean, the blatant truth. You have not been able to solve the issue of insecurity. Food will continue. Even when you remove fuel subsidy, you are going to plunge majority of Nigerians into abject, more times 4 of what is happening right now. Abject poverty. You understand? Already we have 109 million Nigerians living below poverty line already. So you just keep compounding the problems. Why not solve the issue of these refineries that have been comatose, gulping billions on daily basis or yearly, to begin to solve these issues? You are not doing that. Some people are behind. Okay, the people who were caught in the subsidy scandal sometimes back, where is the case today? Who has been prosecuted? What are we talking about? We shouldn't be deceiving ourselves all the time and say, oh, you know, because Nigeria cannot survive, we need to remove this subsidy. Do the needful first and foremost. When Nigerians see that you are actually taking the right steps in the right direction, they begin to back you up and say, you see, these people have exhausted all that need to be exhausted. And now, if we're still in this situation, then it is high time for this subsidy to be removed. There's no any justifiable point to tell me that you 4 refineries, we have 4 refineries, for crying out loud. Why do we have to take the crude from Nigeria to somewhere else, refine it, bring it back, and begin to spend humongous amount of money just to subsidize what? What are you subsidizing? We heard from this president sometimes back when he was also campaigning, saying, what are they subsidizing? Who is subsidizing what? For who? You understand? So if they are coming now to tell us this, we want them to begin to do the needful first and foremost, solve this issue of these comatose refineries. Then when you do that, we begin to see you as a serious government that is willing to do the right thing. That is the point.
Nigerians like you keep saying the issue of refineries.
Yes.
The fixing refineries. And the government are saying that they are diversifying ways of getting money or the economy, rather. But you people, or the Nigerians that I keep saying refineries, does that mean they don't have confidence in diversifying the economy? Or you just want Nigeria to continue depending on crude oil, despite the fact that we have a lot of issues, a lot of mineral resources that we can also depend on?
You see, when I hear people keep saying diversifying, I feel like we are on a campaign ground. Please, we are sick and tired of hearing this diversifying thing. Go to work. That's what we're saying. Diversify. Let's see what you are diversifying. Stop sermonizing it. 7.5 years, you are still diversifying. Where is the diversification going to? What have you diversified? The major thing we need to diversify first and foremost, that is even common, that is accessible to virtually every Nigerian, should be agriculture. How long have they? What progress have we made? You understand? You brought in some dead guys to head agriculture that almost ran that place aground. People cried and crying that
they are not
no,
dead.
hold on. It was just of recent that he listened to the cry of the people to say, oh, these people are not doing the right thing, and the guy that was there got removed, for crying out loud. After about 4-6 years, you understand that he has wasted Nigerians' time. But I need to tell you this categorically: if you are diversifying, the poor masses are not the one that are going to go there and begin to effect the policies of diversification. You, the government, it is your responsibility to do that. You want to diversify, bring it out, roll it, let it, bring out the rolling plan and let it roll. That is the way to go. Not to keep sermonizing this as if we're campaigning. Are we on campaign ground about these things? Or we just, government want to go to work?
Well, even internationally, it has been recognized that Nigeria, for example, is the major producer of rice now in Africa. And also, when you look at some other agricultural products, Nigeria is also part of the leading country in terms of exporting it to other countries. So I think we are still making progress in terms of that.
You see, when you say rice, I can tell you for a fact that there are families in Nigeria that only eat rice during festive periods. That's not the only food we consume. You're saying this for export purposes. People are starving here. You're talking about export. Okay, continue exporting. Let your citizens die of hunger. There are so many other things that common Nigerians go into farming with that are no longer there today. The farms are no longer accessible to common ordinary Nigerians. Go the whole of the Northwest, which has always been in the leading in terms of production of food to most parts of this country. Today, so many people, 80% of these farmers cannot access their farms. Why? Because bandits have taken over those places. You cannot do anything, and the government seems to be helpless. So when you say Nigeria is leading in terms of rice, rice is what we keep hearing all the time. The other time we saw how they came about this ceremony about pyramids and all of that. What pyramid are we talking about? It's not only rice that Nigerians are eating. The families who are eating rice in their homes today are actually in the upper echelon of the Nigerian society, because I'll tell you for a fact that for a very long time now, so many Nigerians are, the poor masses only eat rice when they feel, oh, they are buoyant now. There are so many other cheap food that are no longer affordable to the masses. Beans was in that category for a long time now. If you are eating beans, you are a rich man. Gari was in that category. If you can afford gari today, you are also an average Nigerian. You are average Nigerian. Maize and corn, all of these are there. People who are actually the majority of these guys do it to even sustain their families. Maybe the remnant is what they actually take to the market to sell. So most of these guys cannot access their farms. What we're saying, this whole thing needs to be looked into holistically. It's not just a one formula solve all kind of approach. You need to look at it holistically to say, okay, if we try to alleviate this, inject this into this and alleviate, the suffering in this regard, people begin to get some kind of succor from some other places, and then that comes together. Then we begin to look at subsidy. Removal of subsidy has been a pending issue for a long time. What plan do we have on ground to say, well, we're trying to make sure that people can access their farms. We're trying to see how we can actually help farmers to triple their production, such that there will be enough food in the market, there'll be enough food accessible to the masses. And then when that is done, then we're looking at, okay, so if it's just the fuel subsidy that we are injecting, that we're removing the subsidy now, if we remove it, then transportation will go times 3 perhaps, or times 2 perhaps. That will now have, because we have done something to alleviate or to boost production of food. And when there's so much supply in the market that is higher than even demand, of course, that will force the price to come down. So in that regard, when you begin to remove subsidy, then there's going to be some kind of balance. And I tell you, you make a point. You try to raise a point the other time that this thing has been a pending issue. Previously, they wanted to remove subsidy, and people like us are coming out to say no, and the same thing is happening now. Because the fact is that, you see, Nigerians are not sensitized enough yet. And the time when this government wanted to do it, they didn't do enough of sensitization, because it shouldn't be now. It should be something you're already talking about, but you're making them know it's not now. Now is the time. It's time for emergency. We need to actually, our short-term plan is to take Nigeria out of shortage of food. Once we do that, what we're planning is that gradually we're going to be removing this subsidy, and it's not going to be removed at once. We're going to start reducing what we're injecting into subsidy over time until we can actually sail above board. But in the interim, this is what we're going to be doing. But not just to wake up one day and say we're going to remove subsidy, and by the time you're doing that, the fuel that we're buying at 145 per litre now will turn to 345. Please, what are we talking about?
Samala.
Yes.
Looking at the Nigerians, the mentality of Nigerians, the CBN, for example, has been giving loan to farmers. And these loans are not yet, the farmers are yet to even start process of paying back, which now force the CBN to start finding ways to get the money back. And also, so many reports came out that so many farmers, some use the money to marry women, some use that money just to build houses, and so many. They didn't actually use it in the issue of the farming. Is it the fault of the CBN or the government?
Of course, it is their fault. Yes.
Or it is the fault of the ordinary Nigerians?
It is the fault of the government.
How?
You see, let me tell you, give you a typical example.
How?
You see, in those advanced climes where people are obeying everything, obey traffic, everybody is law abiding. Hold on, you have asked me a question, you let me answer. In those climes, it's not, you see, a human nature ordinarily want to defy orders. The human nature ordinarily does not want conformity. It has to be enforced. And that is why you see our politicians, when they go out there, they also queue. Because in those climes, it is enforced. You don't do it, they clamped on you. You understand? It is not with levity hand. You cannot treat people with kids' glove and think everybody is going to fall into line. It never happened. It has never happened. That has failed all over the world. Where people are complying, it has to be enforced. There must be scapegoats. Where are the people who have defaulted? What are you doing to them? You need to send a strong signal across board, and people will begin to fall into line. You got married, then you spent 10 years in jail. Out of that money, you are not able to pay back. There must be sanctions. We cannot keep doing things the normal way and think the same way and think we want a different result. And I'll tell you for a fact, there's so much scandal even within the CBN NISAL that is involved with all these things. There's so much going on there. There's so much connivance. Some of these issues are needed to be dealt with, not with kids growth.
But Samaila Musa,
Yes.
let's just take a break. When we come back, we are going to continue with the discussion on this issue of fuel subsidy.
No
But
problem.
let's just take a short break. When we come back, discussion continues. Welcome back. We are still discussing issue of subsidy removal suspension, political or economic decision by the government, with Samaila Musa, who is Director of Program and Strategy, Coalition of Northern Group. We are still discussing this. Nigerians would now be saying that since the subsidy removal has been suspended and the government will be spending this huge amount of money. Let us see how the long queue in most filling stations will disappear or will still remain since the thing has been shifted to another government, let me put it that way, since 2023. That means another government that will take over the issue of subsidy. What can you say about this?
Well, you see, like I said, governance is a continuous thing. It's continuum. Going forward, I think we need to be learning big lessons, and I think the people who are queuing now to take over the mantle of leadership need to start asking themselves some pertinent questions. How do I deal with these issues? How do I, if Nigeria crude oil dried up today, what is the alternative plan? Does it mean Nigeria is going to fold up? Do I have another plan in place? What are those things I want to bring or inject into the system? Rather than just busy yourself with campaigns. And I once asked someone who was actually on the campaign trail sometimes back, I don't want to mention even the party, and I said, what plan do you have for education? And he said, well, education, of course, we will improve on it. Do you have statistics of how many schools we have in Nigeria? Maybe primary schools. Do you have statistics? He doesn't have it. And he wants to, in his state, he wants to be governor. He does not even know the number of secondary schools. And he feels he has enough plan to improve on it. These are the issues. We need to begin to look at the kind of people who are actually coming on board. It's not enough because I can wear babariga. It is not enough because I can speak English. It is not enough because I have wide reach. I can actually spend money around. It is not enough, but we need to begin to ask pertinent questions. What do you intend to do with so thing? How do you intend to, galvanize or explore the energy of Nigerian youths? You understand? These are some of the pertinent questions that we need to be asking these politicians, because it's going to set their brains. It's going to reset their brains to, the factory setting that what it ought to be as a normal human being should be thinking. Because when you're coming on board, you think, okay, now we're suspending, what's it called, subsidy removal. Of course, it's obvious because we have a year to election, approximately. You are shifting it to the next government. I believe there will be next government should be thinking around this by now and be looking for solutions to say, what are the problems that are leading to force the government to want to remove the subsidy? How do we tackle that? Because sometimes when you see somebody carrying load on his head and you see it's bending, you are not looking down, you're looking at, oh, look, how is the load bending? But he himself has K-leg. How do you expect someone who has K-leg to have something on his head and it will be straight? The legs are not straight up an issue. So these are some of the issues that actually need to be tackled headlong, and we shouldn't just keep pampering and be voting on emotions. That's what we do all the time. Emotions is what is driving us. Sentiment is what is driving us to bring in leaders into power. And you see, going forward, if we really want these things to be solved, and even the politicians themselves, bringing the right people on board is very, very essential. Not just looking at, oh, I need to fill some quota from my state where I come from. I need some persons because I need to elevate my own kinsmen such that they will know that it was when I was in power that I was able to do that. No, we should learn to put round pegs in round holes. People who actually have what it takes to do that. That's the way forward to go out of this whole thing.
Samuel, marketers,
yes,
are not helpful matters,
yes,
when it comes to the issue of fuel in Nigeria. Just because the news coming out that there is going to be possible removal of subsidy, see how they hold the products.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the government, before this happened, has already unbundled DPR, Department of Petroleum Resources, that is actually monitoring that. Don't you think that there is high time for more issue of enlightenment or sensitization or kind of issues to do with marketers to know that they should also look at the plight of Nigerians? Because the blame will be on the government, despite the fact that not necessarily all the thing is the government's fault.
You see why we will continue to blame the government is the fact that you see those guys that you call the marketers, they cannot do whatever they're doing, they can't do it alone. I want to believe at this stage and time, with the advancement of technology, every tanker should be tracked at this level and time. If ordinary taxi driver has a tracker for his taxi, I do not see any reason why whichever government agency is responsible for that, from NNPC down the line, should know that every tanker should be tracked. Every marketer should be known. You understand? So, you see, we've talked about majority of this, which the government was making a point, which is valid, is that most of this fuel that they are subsidizing is being, exported around out to our neighboring countries. It's still the responsibility of the government. It's not me that will abandon what I'm doing to go and stand at the border. No, you must find a way to track all these things. Look, racketeering will always go around. The people you are blaming, the marketers, they also have people within the system who are saboteurs, who are telling them what to do part time. How do you go about this? They tell them this is what to do. Some of these marketers are actually even fronting for some of the top government functionaries there. Some of these marketers, they get products, they are being prioritized above any other person because they are actually protecting the interests of some persons in government. All this needs to be investigated, needs to be looked into. Who are those ones who are defaulting? There must be scapegoats. They shouldn't be treated like the way the subsidy scandal was treated the other way. We saw how some persons brought in their vessels into the Nigerian water in the name of fuel that have been subsidized, paid for by Nigerian government, and they just make it was just a decoy. They make a turn right in Nigerian waters and go elsewhere. They just be marked that, oh, so vessel has just entered Nigerian waters, and then be marked that it has supplied. Whereas the content or the fuel, the crude was never offloaded in Nigeria, taken somewhere else. It's not my duty to do. It is still the fault of the government. They need to look into this and begin to fish out who are these saboteurs, who are these people responsible for this. So the marketers, everybody needs to be put a tab on. Every tanker that is actually lifting fuel from any NNPC anywhere in Nigeria, or any depot in Nigeria, needs to be tracked. Per time, there should be people who say, oh, The man who is supposed to be going to Zamfara, he actually exceeded is that at Ilela border, trying to cross into Nigeria. There should be people like that. Other than that, we just keep saying the same thing over and over and be blaming who is marketer. The government is the responsibility of the government to regulate the markets. So if you are not leaving it to say, oh, the government is helpless, please, are we serious at all?
The government is not helpless per se, but rather a lot of people are of the opinion that corruption has been deep into the society, to the least person in the society.
Yes.
And that is leading to all the issues. If the issue of corruption has been in the society, also in the system, how do you think this can be solved?
Well, if you say, because if we say this, how can this be solved? We're saying the government, eventually we're saying the government seems to be helpless.
It's not helpless, but
somebody needs to
But the fact remains that
yes,
the population of over 200 million people,
yes,
with the population, in that population, for example, 60% are adults, let me put it that way. And also they are engaged in so many activities. And in that percentage, you find out that a lot of people are engaged into corrupt practices, either knowingly or unknowingly. They engage in collecting of bribes and this and favor and so many other issues. And that may not necessarily or may not be able to be tracked by the anti-corruption agencies like the ICPC and the EFCC with the minimum number of officers and men they have. Don't you think that there should be an orientation? It is a personal thing, not necessarily government thing.
You see, perception management is very key. When this government was coming into power, yeah, they rode on the mantra of anti-corruption, and in between when President Buhari won the election and he's swearing in, so many people packed their bags and left this country. You know why? Because they felt there's a new sheriff in town, we are no longer safe to continue this nonsense we have been doing. This man is coming to jail us. This man is going to turn the whole thing around. Every thief in Nigeria begin to get very jittered and all of that. But you see, instead of that tempo to be maintained, to be built on, everybody went back to sleep. The president started addressing the issue of non-issues essentially, because when it takes you more than 6 months.
He has.
Hold on.
Look at
I'm trying to make a point.
First period he came into power, in that first few weeks, he battled the issue of Boko Haram.
You need to let me.
And also able order the.
You need to let me make my point.
The service chiefs to relocate to Maiduguri, for example, and so many others. So that is.
We are talking about corruption. You see, I don't even want to bring in the issue of insecurity.
Even in corruption, you saw the cases won by EFCC in the history of that agency.
Let me make my point. You have asked me a question.
Okay.
Everybody was beginning to sit up in Nigeria at the time, and that is why perception is very key. To rid Nigeria of corruption is not a what's it called now? It's not something that is actually maybe like a rocket science. No, it is not. It is doable. I just cited that example of in between when he won the election and the swearing in. Everywhere everybody, every thief, every criminal in Nigeria begin to run helter-skelter. All I'm saying is that tempo needs to be sustained. All I'm saying is that, hold on please. All I'm saying is that the same tempo that the president brought, that paraphernalia of a no-nonsense man, that paraphernalia of the man is going to jail every corrupt person in Nigeria, that paraphernalia of saying under this government nobody is going to continue with the impunity that we are known for all over the world, will have to stop. All over time diminished.
Thank you very much.
Into the garbage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samaila Musa. We have been discussing issue of subsidy removal and suspension, political or economic decision with Samaila Musa, who is Director Programs and Strategy Coalition of Northern Group. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's much we have for this segment. And on the this morning on ITV. Next is newspaper review. After this,